Good morning or good afternoon. Hey guys, and welcome to another great lesson. We are going to go ahead and talk about the immune system. We are done with the blood system. Woo! Although it's still going to play an important role, and you'll see a lot of that in the immune system. We are officially done talking about the heart and the vessels just in their own context. We are now going to shift to the immune system. And the great thing about this is that we've already learned about this way back in topic 11, which wasn't that long ago. So let's go ahead and get started with the immune system in humans. All right, so we have the things that we're going to learn about, or kind of review, are pathogens, the lymphatic system, surface barriers, which are like the initial defense of your body, innate immunity, the next level, adaptive immunity, antibiotics, and immune system disorders. Today, we're really only going to cover pathogens we'll probably get up to adaptive immunity or something like that, or innate immunity, one of those two, and then we'll go ahead and focus on antibiotics and medications and disorders in the next class. Okay, so the first thing that we got to understand is what a disease is, and it's pretty easy. A disease is anything that disturbs the normal functioning of an organism. So basically, when you can't maintain homeostasis. This leads, obviously, to you feeling like total crap, and it's usually due to an infection, so something from the outside came in. Now, these infections can be living or non-living, so they can be things like living bacteria, or something like that, or maybe you get a non-living virus, or maybe you have something like a like mad cow's disease, which is caused by these misfolded proteins called prions that sort of develop in your system. So infection can come from any disease-causing agent, which we usually call a pathogen. Your immune system's whole function is to stop it from entering your body, and if it does enter your body, to try to restore homeostasis after it comes inside. So a pathogen, again, is a disease-causing agent. They can be living or non-living. So we have parasites, tapeworms, yay, protists, woo, they're cool, fungi, gross, bacteria, viruses, boo, prions, prions are terrifying. If you want to, I can talk more about them later. I don't want to talk about it now, but good God, they're scary. Look up prions and see, it's just like your whole body just starts shutting down. It's really scary. Really cool research here, though, because it's involved in, we think, creating the plaques that are involved in schizophrenia, and that's not what I wanted to say. What is it? Not Parkinson's. What's wrong with me? Alzheimer's. Thank you. Haha, brain. Okay. Anyway, prions are, you should look into them. Okay, your immune system. What's it made out of? Okay, so your immune system is your blood system and lymphatic system working very closely together. So we've already learned a lot about your blood system. We know that it's basically the major transportation highway for all of the stuff in your body that's important. And your lymphatic system is going to be all of the different nodes and things that are going to release hormones and chemicals. It's also going to be a drainage system to filter your blood and tissues. So it's going to be working closely with this. If you guys remember the digestive system simulation that I had you guys do, adding the lymphatic system actually did do a lot to help with your digestion, even though these guys were really important in the absorption of calories and water. So both of these guys will be what we're mainly looking at here. So lymph is, we're going to start with the lymphatic system. Lymph is a clear, disgusting fluid. It contains a lot of white blood cells, which we know are kind of the defender cells of our blood system. It'll also transport fats, which it's important to note that hormones are lipids oftentimes, and so that's very important. It's also involved in sort of the regulation of cholesterol, how much cholesterol is in the blood and leaving the blood. So lymph is filtered by what we call nodes, and they are where our pathogens are actually targeted. So we can think of, when we think of a node, to think of a centralized area or something like that's what it is. Where it's sort of all of the stuff that's going through the blood is monitored. It has to pass through and be sort of scanned by and approved by the node, or not, and the pathogens that are in the blood can then be targeted. The lymphatic system, what we call its organs, are lymphoid organs, which is cool. And they include all of these wonderful, disgusting things, such as the spleen, the thymus, your tonsils, and your appendix. So that lovely vestigial organ that can rupture and in some cases kill you. Yay! Anyway, lymphatic system, all of that gross, wonderful stuff, and I love how it's always colored green. That always makes it especially appealing. Yay, green things in your body. Okay, so we're going to start with your immune cells here. White blood cells, which are inside of that lymph we were talking about, that lovely liquid, are produced by the bone marrow. So just like your red blood cells, they originate within your bones. That's why your bones are porous, by the way. And this leads me, sorry, quick tangent, to the thing about Wolverine from the X-Men, which is that his bones are covered in adamantium. Is the adamantium porous? Because if not, how in God's good green earth or Wolverine's good great body or whatever, are they going to be able to produce any of these white blood cells and get them out into the body? I mean, that's a huge oversight on the part of whoever designed Wolverine. I mean, come on, people, science, say at least that the adamantium is like porous and can allow anyway. So neutrophils. Okay, so let's go over a couple of these other ones. So white blood cells are leukocytes. Neutrophiles or phils are going to be the first responders. So they're going to be like the emergency response people that come in and they're like, quick, somebody's attacking, do something about it. Lymphocytes are going to be your adaptive immunity. So they're different than leukocytes. Lymphocytes are going to be like how your body is going to respond as conditions change and over the long term. So we're going to talk a little bit about them in a little bit. But if you think about it, you adapt to something, you become better at handling it over time. So they're going to be involved in that sort of longer term process. Monocytes are used for presenting antigens. So essentially, monocytes are going to be like the the defenders that go out and they're going to pick up a couple of the pathogens, enemy flags or whatever, and they're going to be like, look, this is what they look like. This is what I found. And they're going to bring it up and show it to the lymphocytes who are going to be like, interesting. I want to put out an order. All of these people must be caught, wanted, dead, or alive. Anyway, so the monocytes are going to be the ones that are going to be like, this is the problem. And lymphocytes are going to be like, I see the problem. I'm going to do something about it. All right, then we have eosinophils, which are going to respond to parasites. So all of the lovely little, squiggly things that crawl into your body, and they're like, I would like a home, and also to steal all your resources and to make you super uncomfortable and to just be squidgy for no reason. And so eosinophiles are going to take care of that. Basophiles, or basophiles, whatever you want to say, are going to be the ones to initiate inflammation. And if you think about inflammation, if you remember, that means widening of your blood vessels to allow for better movement of immune system cells, and also for the construction of more capillaries around the infected area so that you can get a lot of these first responders there. Because remember, your capillaries are the roads, and in order to get a first responder there or get all these emergency response people there, you have to have roads to get them. So here's the mnemonic to remember all these. Never let monkeys eat bananas, and this monkey looks very happy about that mnemonic. It looks demonic for that mnemonic. Anyway. Okay, so here's basically what I was saying. Neutrophils are street cops. These guys are like the fumigators that kill parasites. The eosinophil, the basophils, firemen, monocyte, right? You can read, you can look at it. Anyway, those all make sense. These guys, the military guys, these are hard hitters, and this is what we're going to talk about a lot today. Okay, so in short, when something is coming in to invade your body, it's first got to get through your skin and all of the fun secretions your skin makes. So, not only is your skin oily, it also has all these cool acids and enzymes and stuff that are like, go away, parasites and pathogens. But when, your skin is ruptured, you get stabbed, just the normal Tuesday stuff, we get over here to the second line of defense, which is where we get all of the all those cells we were just talking about in the molecular response and the inflammation and all that sort of stuff. So once it's come in, you got to do something about it. And then when you initially respond with all this stuff that basically just helps to get all the emergency vehicles there, then you start doing your long-term planning, which is your adaptive immunity. So that third line of defense, and this is where you're going to make those antibodies and those B and T cells that we were talking about, in the memory cells. And this is where you build up that long-term immunity that we were discussing before in topic 11. So this is the stuff we've already really covered. This is the stuff that we're going to cover in more detail today. So surface barriers. Well, of course, you got your skin. I mean, we can all hope that you have your skin. It's thick. It's tough. Covered in dead cells also, which is fun to think about. And it also secretes all these biological agents to be like, no, you cannot You cannot grow here, which includes things like acids and high pH and enzymes. And then, of course, you have your mucous membranes, and these are going to protect your internal structures. And so, if you think about all the mucus and the snot that you have during this lovely pollen season, and you're probably like, I hate all this stuff. It makes breathing hard, but it's catching a bunch of that really fun squiggly stuff that you don't really want in your body, and it's making it so that that squiggly stuff can't really get to you. So you either blow it out on a tissue and you put it away, or you swallow it, and it goes down to your stomach where it's dissolved by acid. So you better thank those boogers for being there, because they're doing a lot of good things up in there. God. Anyway, yeah, and then cells also will secrete those same kind of biochemical agents that are going to inhibit that growth. And they might be ciliated, which you might be like, what does that mean? Does it mean they're silly? No, it means that they're covered in these little hair-like projections that are going to catch all that stuff. So like, you can kind of think your nose hairs are not ciliated, but they act like cilia. They're kind of up there in your nostrils, and they catch all that stuff so it doesn't just all go back in your sinus cavity and cause infections. So those cilia and help to increase surface area for the secretion of these agents, and also to help trap pathogens and make it so that they can't go where they want to go. All right, so we see here, it's all sorts of places where you can stop things using just what we call surface barriers. Now, it's important to realize that surface barrier does not mean just the outside of your body, just your skin. I mean, if you think about it, when you swallow food, or when you suck something up your nose or something like that, I mean, it doesn't just diffuse through your head into your brain or something. I mean, there's like tubes up there, right? It goes into your sinus cavity and goes down. You swallow food, it goes down to your esophagus, into your stomach. I mean, it's not like you're just like you have a hole for your mouth and then you're just like an empty container. No, there's like tubes and stuff. And so surface doesn't just mean the outside of your body. It also means like the surface of the insides of those tubes and everything. And so that's what we mean by surface barrier. When we're talking about the others, it means it's diffused into the deeper cell layers of your body, and that's where the problems come in. Anyway, so you have lysosomes in your tears and other secretions, which is weird to think that you have lysosomes in your tears, but yeah, it's awesome. They're like chemical defense in your eyeballs. Oh God. Speaking of snot, sorry, TMI. Removal of particles by your cilia and your narsopharynx, which just means basically your nasal passage. So all of these little ciliated cells up in here are going to catch stuff and make sure it can't go back to important places. Your intact skin is obviously very important. Your mucus lining your trachea, which is your windpipe, is going to be really important for stopping any bacterial infections that could otherwise be in your lungs. In case you're wondering of a good example of that, a good example would be pneumonia. You don't want pneumonia. It's not good. Your obvious super acidic environment of your stomach is going to stop a lot of that stuff, because even if you get stuff trapped up in your nasal passage, you can just swallow that snot, goes down here, and into the acid bath they go. Then we have commensals, which when we talk about flora in your gut, we're not talking about all the lovely flowers growing in your intestine. We're talking about all the bacteria, lovely bacteria growing in your intestine. Even better. And that can stop stuff. Obviously, the vaginal fluids in acids in females are going to help to self-clean and regulate that, which we talked about when we talked about gametogenesis and all that other stuff. It also makes things hard for sperm. And then the flushing of the urinary tract. So when you pee, obviously you're going to be peeing out all of these things that got trapped. And that's that whole filtration and digestion we talked about already. So hopefully that makes sense. So all kinds of cool ways you can do that initial defense response. Clotting. Now, let's say that you have an accidental stab wound, or you just, accidentally scraped a knee or something. Well, you have now ruptured your outer skin defenses. Your shields are down. What do you do? So your body has this awesome process called clotting, not clogging, clotting, wherein we repair these wonderful holes. Now, basically, floating around inside your blood are all these things called platelets, and platelets normally look like this, like plates. Thus the name, platelets. But when platelets get to a nice little entry, when you have cut yourself and they get to that hole, they immediately start swelling up like cotton, and they form into what we call a sticky plug. Isn't that wonderful? And so that's, that kind of like scabby stuff that you see, when you first cut yourself, and your blood, it kind of like, the blood like comes out of your wound and it kind of hardens into that weird like hard mesh or whatever. That's the sticky plug. And inside that sticky plug, not only are there platelets, but there's like this nice fibrin. It's like a protein rope that's going to wrap around it and make sure that it's like super hard and tight and fibrous. And I don't know if you guys ever picked at your scabs before. And I'm sorry to bring this to a gross place, but if you ever pulled apart a scab, it's like there is a weird fibrous texture to it, and that's where this comes in. Okay, but anyway, so this forms a clot that's going to help to repair that hole so that all those pathogens can't just be like, hey, the door's open, let's go. And then once, you've actually repaired the internal damage, you can go ahead and dissolve the clot and you're good to go. So clotting is really important, and it's initiated by what we call clotting factors or damaged cells. So it could either be an internal response or external response. Let's say you go along and you accidentally damage a blood vessel. Boom, you take your toe right into that stupid desk that's always right there, and you keep forgetting, and you're just like, no, come on, first burn. You say a lot of fun words. And when you do that, oh no, your blood starts leaking out. Well, fortunately, there are a bunch of platelets in there. And those platelets are going to come in, and they are going to clog that hole and form that sticky plug. Now, when they do that, there's this thing called prothrombin inside of your blood as well. And prothrombin is going to be converted into thrombin. And you're like, why do I care? What does this mean? What's thrombin and prothrombin? Well, just know that these guys are going to be these precursors to that fiber I was talking about before. So these guys, thrombin is going to activate fibrinogen, and fibrinogen is going to activate fibrin, which basically makes a bunch of ropes to tie together the platelets. If you're wondering why it's so complex, just remember that every single molecular enzymatic pathway in your body takes multiple stages to do. Basically, just imagine that they're weaving a rope. Weaving a rope takes time, and eventually you end up weaving the rope, and you get it. Finally, you get the rope, and you tie it up around the platelets, and everything's good, and you're good to go. You plug the clot, and woohoo! Yay! You're good. You're awesome. So that's basically, it's just a chain of molecular activity that makes this nice little clot. So thrombosis is that formation of the clot inside your blood vessel, and this is a good thing until it's not. So let's look at it now. Normally that would be awesome, right? You accidentally create a hole in your blood vessel. Yeah, you absolutely want this to happen. But let's imagine that sadly, instead of just a cut, what happens when your blood vessel is damaged by a bunch of cholesterol. So remember before we talked about the blood system, where if you have too much of that LDL cholesterol, it can start to build up in your blood system and create those nice little clots inside your arteries and stuff, and especially near your heart. That was super dangerous. Right. Well, what if that happened and that restricted blood flow increased the pressure in your artery and damaged the wall? Dun, dun, dun. Well, now, of course, your platelets are going to, and your fibrin and all that stuff are going to be like, don't worry, we can handle that. And they come in and they repair it with fibrous tissue. But when they do so, the fibrous tissue isn't the elastic stuff it was originally made out of. And, oh, God, that little part is no longer elastic. And if you remember, your arteries have got to be elastic because of that pressure. So we just created a weak spot. Oh, God. And then that is going to lead to the formation of a lesion called an atherosclerotic plaque. Yeah, and that plaque right there is going to build up in the blood vessel, and when it ruptures, we're going to create another thrombus, another like thing of clotted platelets and fibrin, and we're going to make the plug even worse, and we're going to kill all that tissue. So here's a great example. So talking about it's confusing, but here's what's happening. Here in a vessel, we end up getting a lot of cholesterol buildup, right? That's going to increase the pressure in here, and oh God, what happens when that cap ruptures? Well, we're going to get that nice little thrombus, and the thrombus is going to be like, don't worry, I can plug the hole. But when the thrombus plugs the hole, it also plugs your entire artery, and that entire part of your heart dies. This is not good, right? So these thrombuses are good, usually, but this is just sort of showing you there's also some times when it's bad. So anyway, what happens? Okay, so something's gotten through your outer defenses. It's broken through your skin. Your thrombuses didn't hold. Whatever happened, something slipped in through the door. What do? So your second line of defense is called the innate immune system, and it can be non-specific and non-adaptive, unlike the adaptive immune system, which is what we learned about before, which has to be specific and adaptive. This one, it's not going to be looking for any particular pathogens. It's not going to be like, oh my God, that's the flu. I need to really prepare for that, versus a common cold where it's like, nah. No, no, no. It doesn't differentiate. It's going to give the same response to the flu, the common cold, COVID. Oh my God, I can't talk. Whatever. And it's always the same, no matter what. Okay. And this is all the fun stuff, you guys. And you should know it's all the same because you've experienced it if you've ever gotten sick. You get the flu, you get a fever and inflammation. You get sick and a common cold, you get the fever and inflammation. It's great. It's like, it's like a guaranteed package. It's so much fun. But anyway, so inflammation, remember, is important because this is going to increase all those blood vessels so that those first responders can get there. It's also going to dilate your vessels to make it easier for that blood flow to get there. Phagocytosis, there's going to be a bunch of cells, so those first responders are going to get there, and they're going to engulf and destroy the pathogens. So that's going to be your first line of defense there. We have these antimicrobial proteins that are going to go in there, and they're going to be like, okay, make sure that they get rid of any of those living biological agents that might be in the infection. And then fever, like bacteria mostly. And then we have fever, which is of course going to try to denature some of those microbial proteins and try to kill them with heat. Kill it with fire. Okay. Anyway, upon tissue damage, your mast cells, which you should remember from way back when we talked about your what's wrong with me, allergy response, and basophils, which are going to be those initial police responders, are going to release these histidines, or histamines, which we're going to see right here. And histamines are going to cause that dilation of your blood vessels to make it easier for stuff to get there, and that capillary, and increases all the capillary permeability so that more stuff can flow out of them. And it's going to improve the recruitment of those leukocytes, which are your white blood cells, which are going to come in there and start that immune response. So basically, it's just making the highway bigger, clearing out the highway of all the cars, just like in when an emergency response vehicle comes down the highway, everyone kind of pulls over to the side and lets all the good guys get in there so they can start handling all that stuff. Monocytes are going to be macrophages. You guys should remember those. And dendritic cells, macrophages are going to be the ones that are going to come in and eat up the pathogen. They're going to break them down and pick up their little antigens, those little flags that the pathogens carry around, and they're going to present them and be like, hey, this is the flag of our enemy. So basically it's like kill the enemy, steal their flag, display it, and be like, this is who we need to fight. That's what monocytes do. And they use pseudopods, which is so cool because, I mean, think about it. Pseudopods are like how amoeba get around, and like, it's this ancient vestige of like old eukaryotic stuff, and it's in our cells. It's amazing. So these macrophages are going to use those pseudopods as their extensions of their plasma membranes to surround the incoming pathogen and then break it up so it can display those flags, those antigens on its surface. And then once they go ahead and they do that, they then go ahead and they contact the lymphocytes. So essentially, basically, the next step here, in which I was hoping this slide would go into it, but it does not. But the next step here is that these presented flags are then going to activate your T cells, which are then going to activate your B cells and your long-term adaptive response. But this is the first step, and it's still part of that initial immune response. Then we have the complement system, and so these are going to be those antimicrobial proteins. This is important because sometimes when pathogens invade your body, or if you have like a big cut or something and stuff invades, it's not just one type of pathogen. It's not like they're like, okay, who wants to go next? Okay, Bernie, you go next, and we'll all wait here and wait for your infection to end, and then we'll all go in. No, it's like a bunch of stuff enters at once, living and non-living. And so your body, to make sure that it's handling kind of the gamut of everything, it's going to send in a bunch of chemicals to try to deal with all those scenarios. Chemotaxis is going to be one of the functions of these complement proteins. It's going to attract those the cells, like we were just talking about, the monocytes, to the site of infection. So it's going to be like over here, and the monocytes are going to come over and just start nom 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 on the infection. Opsonization. Oh God, I can never say this right. Opsonization. Opsonization is also going to enhance phagocytosis, so it's going to mark those antigens for the immune response. So it's going to be targeting a slightly different part of the pathogens. It's going to be targeting the flags rather than the pathogens themselves. And then membrane attack, which is going to be basically when these enzymes are going to bind onto the cell walls. If you remember, all the bacteria and living agents, pathogens have those cell walls that are made out of peptidoglycan, and so this enzyme is going to go in and rupture those walls and basically start killing them. So essentially, these enzymes are going to work together with the rest of this immune response to just sort of start attacking and reducing the number of enemies that have entered the body. And then these complement proteins that do all of these things, they're always present. They're always circulating in the blood, but they're inactive until they're triggered by a molecular response. So they're always there. It's always waiting to happen. Your body's defenses are always kind of on standby, and then once activated, they start doing all these attacks. So why do you have a fever? Well, if you remember, heat denatures proteins, and that's pretty important. But it can also help to stimulate other responses. So it reduces the growth rate of pathogens, so it makes it harder for their enzymes and everything to work. And it activates heat shock proteins, which are really important. Heat shock proteins are going to actually help your cells. So if you've ever wondered, like, okay, if I have a fever and it's denaturing bacterial cells and proteins, shouldn't it also be denaturing mine because my proteins might not be able to handle the heat? The answer is yes, but fortunately your body has this wonderful response called heat shock proteins. They are very, very hard to denature by heat. And basically what they do is they go in and they surround your enzymes or your proteins that have been denatured, and they help those proteins to refold in the right way. So basically, yeah, there's some friendly fire. Your body initiates a fever, and it does hurt your proteins. But then you've got these heat shock proteins to come in and help to repair your proteins. They don't repair the pathogenic ones. So we see here, we've got the pathogens come in, the leukocytes are activated, they release the cytokines or cytokines. You guys should remember I'm talking about this in Unit 11. These are the hormones that are going to stimulate a response from your hypothalamus, which is going to produce these prostaglandins, good God, which is going to trigger your fever. And of course, these prostaglandins can also continue to trigger the hypothalamus in case a continuation of the fever is needed. So it can become a little bit of a feedback loop. Of course, it's going to shut down when the fever is no longer needed. Okay, then we get to the natural killer cells, which are going to non-specifically target stuff. Now, this is very different from the specific targeting system of the adaptive immune system. Non-specific targeting is just going to be looking for basically any invading pathogenic cell, doesn't matter what it is, and it's going to try to kill it. NK cells are used to combat tumors and viruses, actually specifically cells infected by viruses, so they're going to come in and basically they're going to start the process of apoptosis within an infected cell. So basically it's like a cell gets infected, and these natural or NK cells are going to come in, and the cell's going to be like, they got me, Lewis, I'm going down. And the NK cells are going to be like, I know, buddy, I know you will sacrifice yourself for the greater good. And then they'll destroy their best friend Lewis, or I forget who Lewis is in this scenario. Anyway, the NK cells are going to take down the infected cell, and they're going to be like, thanks for sacrificing your life for everyone. And then they're going to put down their old cell buddy and move on to the next infected cell. So, wow, that was a weird little thing. Sorry, I'm a little bit a little bit tired this morning. Anyway, so the natural killer cells are activated by things called interferons or macrophage-derived cytokines. So again, these are hormones that are going to start this messaging cascade that's going to be like, hey, we need some NK cells in here. They're going to target the host cells. They're going to display an altered state, which basically means when cells are infected, they change their surface, and they're obviously sick. Just like when somebody is infected by something, and it's very obvious they're sick, you're like, oh man, they're sick, I should stay away from them. Well, the NK cells are looking for those cells that have changed something about their membranes that make it look like they're sick, and they're like, okay, sorry, buddy, but, look away. That role is very close to those cytotoxic T cells that we talked about way before, but it's much faster because they don't require that long setup where you're like that very specific response from the adaptive immune system where it's like, okay, we're going to set up all this stuff and then we're going to go. They don't need all that setup. They can just go ahead and dive in because they're non-specific. They are lymphocytes, but they function as part of the innate immune system, so rather than the surface immune system. It can be a little complicated, but just know that NK cells are a special type of lymphocyte that are going to be part of the innate, not the surface system. Okay, so we've gone on for a little while, and I know what you're thinking. Oh God, not another section. This video is 30 minutes long already. Holy cow, Mr. Garner, what do I do? Well, the great thing about this is that we've already talked about this. So the adaptive immune system, we've already covered it in topic 11. It's specific, it's adaptive. We start with those monocytes, those macrophages. They're going to end up eating the pathogens. They're going to display the enemy flag, the little antigen markers. The antigen markers are going to be picked up by helper T lymphocytes. The helper T lymphocytes are going to release cytokines to activate B and T cytotoxic cells, which are going to kill the infected cells. And those B cells are going to go ahead and activate memory cells that are going to start to produce a ton of antibodies to fight the pathogen for the long term. So we already know all this stuff. You guys can pause the video and look at this if you want to, but we've already seen this. We've already done the macrophage. We've already looked at this. We've looked at the helper T cells, the activated B cells, the specific antibodies. We already know how this works, so we don't have to do it. We don't have to go through that in great detail. And that's it, guys. Next time we're going to talk about medications and specific diseases and combating them. But other than that, that's it for now. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the surface and the innate immune responses. And maybe the brief recap of the adaptive immune response. Man, we are flying through topic 6, so we should be done with this like super soon. I cannot wait for us to be able to get into our independent projects. It's going to be so cool. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I hope you're having an awesome day. Have a wonderful time, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.